So let's look over this Long Island audits Fahey situation. I've never done a video on Long Island audits, but this has some interesting parts to it. Time is short. I got a hearing starting soon. As you know, I used to be a prosecutor here in Orange County, but then we would refer this out to the Attorney General. So I would expect that the Attorney General would then be the independent, no appearance of conflict of interest type of agency that would then handle the case. That's standard fare. The next issue is the police said no comment at this time. Now, remember, the police are very open to you testifying basically against yourself, admitting things against yourself, answering their questions. But man, if there's a possibility they could be charged with some wrongdoing, the first thing they do is they lawyer up and they shut up. Learn from that. Another thing that I haven't heard anyone talking about is the loss of litigation privilege. Oh, this is a dandy. I'm an expert in this area of law. I've argued these issues in front of the Court of Appeal, and I've never lost. The litigation privilege, for those of you who are unaware, is a very strong privilege here in California, and I'd be surprised if they don't have it in Connecticut and other states. The idea is that you are free to say things in the course of litigation as long as it serves the principles and aspects of the litigation. So to take that out of lawyer speak, when you decide that you want to broadcast to the world your version of the lawsuit, and then you have your, courageous, strong, and brave lawyers standing side by side with you, and they both decide to tell everybody about how this person stole this and this person did that and this person said this and did this. None of this shit's been proven, okay? And I don't give a crap if it's a verified pleading under oath. You're trumpeting your version of the facts, and there hasn't been an outcome in the case. You open yourself up to all kinds of claims that normally you'd be shielded from with the litigation privilege. And who knows, it can cause you a lot of trouble. So once again, broadcasting the case to the world is allowable under certain circumstances, but not always a good idea. There are exceptions to every rule. This is just generalities. Going to the guy's home, I will fault Long Island Audits, LIA, for that. If you really needed information, and by the way, I'm totally in support of an audit that actually proves that someone could be ripping off the system. I love that shit. I would not give Long Island Audits the benefit of the doubt going to the guy's house if what the guy said was true, is that he's threatened him. I don't know if this is true. I'm just telling you what I've been hearing. Okay. Man, you can get that information through a subpoena. You can get that information through a request for information, whatever, but you don't have to go to the guy's house. If it's true, and I'm just hypothetically speaking, that he was threatened by Long Island Audits, LIA, and was going to be killed, then the last thing you want to do is go outside with the guy. Even worse is to close the door, go in, get a gun, and come back out. Well, you talk about aggravating a situation. The physical contact, bumping LIA like this, makes him the aggressor. Having the gun makes him the aggressor. If this guy was the threat that he was claimed to be, you don't need to open the damn door, okay? Remember, wasn't there a ring camera? So the guy would see who's on the other side. So I think the cop already knew it was him and was looking now to do something, okay? But I think LIA was looking for the reaction too, and boy, did he get it. The cop would have called 911 and stayed aside, and then it would have been a completely different matter. I did see a yellow sign about 60 feet up the driveway, and I can't read it, but it looks like it could be that it's not a public roadway or some kind of sign like that. And we will see whether or not that affects the criminal charges, or even if there's a defense to criminal charge. I think the cop did spit in his face. Spit in my face and tell me that you love me. Okay. Was Long Island Audits in fear? Fear is important because the reasonable person is what the law always looks at. We never met him, but everybody knows him. Were you ever afraid? Sometimes fear is a requirement as a defense, or, you know, fear is required for you to do something. Not all laws are the same in every state. So the voyeurism charge, absolute bullshit. I can't imagine that one going forward. I mean, they can, remember when I say that, you know, I'm not running the case. You can get some dude with a hair up his ass and he just says, you know, I'm going to charge him with voyeurism, because it's really a nasty charge. Okay. This also looks a lot like a get out and stay out type of case. Like, what's the name of that auditor? Lana? Oh, Florida. That's right. When she came from Florida and went to Alabama, the judge said in his opinion, and he gave her a really brutal sentence that says, they came looking for trouble and they found it. That's a, don't come back. This could be one of those kinds of cases. Now, I went through the different statutes here, and we can just start eliminating them. First, assault in the first degree, that's the worst charge you can get. Second degree assault doesn't apply. Causes serious physical injury, doesn't count, doesn't happen. I looked at this one. Was there any firearm involved? Yeah, looking for a firearm, always an aggravating factor, but it doesn't fit because you need serious injury. Next, we get into assault in the third degree, Class A misdemeanor with an intent to cause physical injury, causes such injury. So then we drop down to threatening, Class D felony. If you commit threatening in the second degree and then you possess a firearm, was threatening in the second degree. I saw here, by physical threat, such person intentionally places or attempts to place another person in fear of imminent serious physical injury. So here's fear. So was LIA in fear of a serious physical injury? Or was he terrorized? So this would be a charge against the cop, just in case you guys aren't following along here. It's not charges by LIA against LIA. This is a charge against the cop, right? Such person intentionally places or attempts to place another person in fear of imminent serious physical injury. Well, you got the gun. What more do you need? Angry, banging the dude, spitting in his face, nothing calm about all that. The average person would be afraid. The average. Or terrorized with an intent. Doesn't mean that the person actually was terrorized. Such person threatens to commit any crime of violence with the intent to terrorize. So remember, this has to actually be an unlawful crime. So it gets a little bit more tricky. And then breach of the peace in the first degree. I took a look at this. Non-functional imitation of an explosive. So you put something on the front door, make them think it's a bomb, right? That won't work. Okay. This one's public disturbance, a fraction. That's always the best if you have to be facing down something, because that's just a fine, no jail time. And it says public disturbance, again for the cop, with the intent to cause an inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm, or recklessly creating a risk thereof with the gun, engages in fighting or violent, tumultuous, or threatening behavior. To the piece second degree. Now it's a misdemeanor, much better. Engages in fighting. No, I don't think that was really a fight. Assaults or strikes another. Assaults, again, would have to look at the definition of this, or threatens to commit any crime against another person. Threatening to commit a crime means an unlawful, because it's a crime, it's unlawful stuff like, I'm going to burn your house down, arson. So, you know, or engages in a violent, tumultuous, or threatening behavior in a public place. I was looking at public place, And it says any area that's used or out for the use by the public, whether owned or operated by public or private interest. This one here, LIA was reported has $75,000 bond for him and $50,000 for his cameraman. That's really outrageous. Breach of the peace, he was charged with, and criminal trespass. Okay, so I was looking at the different types of criminal trespass, and there is the first degree. Then there's a second degree criminal trespass. Knowing that such person is not licensed, such person enters or remains in a building. Third degree, enters or remains in premises which are posted in a manner prescribed by law, reasonably likely to come to the attention of intruders or offense or otherwise belong to the state, blah, blah, blah. This is the one where that sign might come into play for a third degree, but still it's a misdemeanor. The voyeurism charge is ridiculous with malice. I saw the malice one here. The rest of them are completely out of bounds. Such person not only photographs, films, or videotapes, or otherwise records the image of another person. With malice, just for a criminal would be, an evil motive or anything along those lines. Knowingly photographs, films, or videotapes, or otherwise records the image of another person. That is a very strange statute as it applies here. I could see it where the guy has a camera, not him, but some guy has a camera and he sees a woman, in a bikini. He looks over the fence and then takes a picture of her. And, she would not consent to it if she saw what was happening. That would be the malicious part of it. Without the knowledge and consent of such other person, while such other person is not in plain view, under such circumstances where such other person is a reasonable expectation of privacy. With the intent to arouse or satisfy the sexual desire of such person. I'm absolutely convinced LIA had no sexual reaction to this at all. Okay, so that's what makes this whole statute ridiculous. Remember, one thing about statutory interpretation is you have to look at the whole thing, right? There will be parts that don't apply because the legislature is presumed to know what it meant when it said it and wrote it. But when you look in context, what is this really for, right? With the intent to arouse or satisfy the sexual desire of another person, intent to arouse or satisfy the desire of another person, blah, 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 genitals, or such as a reasonable expectation of privacy. It's this one looks ridiculous. So there you have it. We'll see how this unfolds. That cop was way out of line. He had so many other ways as a trained professional to handle this, and he decided, I think, to basically disregard all of it. And now he's become famous. We'll see how it goes.